seconds. Okay, everybody in the room, here we go. 10 seconds.
All right, and when we do open up, sir, I am going to join us in live and give that opening introduction, and I will turn it to you. Ready?
Yes.
Here we go, sir. Good day, and welcome to the 2020 Canadian Western Agribition Annual General Meeting. Today's conference is being recorded. At this time, I would like to turn the conference over to Mr. Chris Lees. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, and welcome to the 49th Annual General Meeting of Canadian Western Agribition. I'm Chris Lees, current president of CWA. It certainly has been an unprecedented year so far, and we are having an unprecedented AGM, as this will be a virtual meeting. At this time, I would like to introduce our CEO, Chris Lane. He's beside me in our boardroom. I would also like to introduce our executive that we have with us. Bruce Holmquist is our past president. Kim Hextall, our vice president. Curtis Kachinka is member at large on our executive team. Levi Jackson and Michael Latimer. Michael Latimer will be joining us online from Alberta. We also have in the room Halter Media, and I would like to thank them for their webcast services. Thank you to SaskTel for our conference services. And questions will be handled by our administration team. Last call for resolutions is called for now, so please go online to agribition.com in the question box or send to cwaquestions@agribition.com. Resolutions will be taken by Kim Hextall. At this time, I would call the meeting to order, and I'll hand it off to Chris Lane to discuss the agenda and procedures.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you all for joining us online or on the conference call or in the room for those of you who are able. As Chris mentioned, this is an unprecedented AGM and a very unprecedented time for Agribition. So we thank every one of our members who received and responded to the proxy voting system that we were required to meet our constitutional obligations to move forward with the business of the business. So the way this will work today is you have been sent an agenda this morning. It is a different format of an agenda than what a normal Agribition AGM would entail. Largely, we are going through passing or announcing the passing of the motions of the business of Agribition. We have a report for you on the status of the 2019 show and the status of the business to date. And we also have director elections that will happen. And then we will also have a time for question and answers. So for those of you on the conference call line, you will have an opportunity to join in and ask a question at the end of the presentation. And also for those of you joining us online via webcast, there is an email and a questions box on that page where you can submit your questions as well. Because this is an unusual AGM, as I mentioned, we have had a proxy system, so we will be reading out the motions, the movers and the seconders, and the status of those motions as we go. No formal votes will be required today at today's meeting. We do have the ability to collect any resolutions from the floor, although we would be putting any resolutions we get today to the membership digitally for a vote and then future communication of the result of those votes at a later date. I would say that the reason for the AGM in its format today is because of the social distancing and health guidelines, of which Agribition is very happy to comply with. I should say that everybody in the room today, including Chris and I, are appropriately distanced, and we have hand sanitizers available for anybody in the room as well. I would like to take this opportunity quickly to make a special thank you and a mention to our partners at all levels of government. That includes Minister David Merritt and Premier Scott Moe at the province of Saskatchewan and their teams, as well as Minister Marie-Claude Bibeau and her team at the federal level as well. And of course, Mayor Michael Fougere and the entire City of Regina administration and council for their ongoing support of Agribition, not only in years past, but in years future. So thank you to all of them. I would like to also mention that Agribition operates in an ecosystem of agriculture as an industry, but also agriculture as events. And we have multiple shows and events that are in the similar situation as us this year, and we all operate together. So if there is a message of solidarity to the industry and to the event industry, I would say that Agribition stands with you, and we look forward to the return of all of our events, no matter where you are in 2021. With that, I would hand it back to President Chris Lees for continuing on with the formal portion of our AGM.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So at this time, then we will have accept the minutes from the 48th annual meeting, and I'll read it. We have sent out a proxy to our membership base for voting on our various course of business motions. Thank you to those who have voted. The motion, which reads as follows, that the minutes of the April 10th, 2019 AGM be approved as presented. Moved by Curtis Kahinka, second by Michael Latimer, and the motion was carried. So at this time, we're moving on. Just a little bit of an update in regards to last year's show and how it went. We had a very, very successful show, and I would like to thank the executive, the board, past presidents, staff, and volunteers for the hard work that they do every year. And we've been doing it now for 49 years, and the show does nothing get better every year. A special thank you I want to send out today is to a board member that is retiring, and you will notice that when we get to our elections, and that's to Carla Borsa. She was with us for 8 years on the board, and there was never a time when I know myself or the past presidents before asked her to something to do, and she was the first to step to the plate. So thank you a lot, Carla. As Chris, as this morning the press release went out, and we had a very successful year last year. That was awesome. One of the highlights was having the Minister of Ag, Federal Minister of Ag, Marie-Claude Bibeau, and Minister David Merritt in the barns together for half a day last year at Agribition on opening day. That was excellent. Our attendance for 2019 was right on par with past years, and our international growth actually grew a little bit. We had 1,300 guests from over 86 countries. Over 10,000 school children attend, and that's a big part of our organization here, is to bring in the school children and be able to show them and educate them on what agriculture is certainly all about. Maple Leaf Rodeo Finals was a success. That's the first year for that rodeo. We had strong crowds and a tremendous rodeo. Everybody raved about it. Cattle prices were strong, and our international participation in those sales was right on par with other years. We couldn't have asked for a better time with them. And with that, here we go. We're going to move on to 2021, and we're expecting that to be a world-class event that this show has become, and we know it will be, and we're certainly looking forward to getting there.
Thank you, Chris. At this time, I'd like to move forward with my formal CEO report, which is an update with some statistics for everyone on the performance of Canadian Western Agribition in the last year. And I think, if we haven't acknowledged it off the top, for anybody who hasn't seen the announcement, clearly we are facing a challenge with COVID-19 in 2020. So Canadian Western Agribition made the difficult decision within the last 7 days to postpone our 50th show until 2021. So when we talk about the work ahead in 2020, the challenge that creates, and the excitement around coming back in 2021, it's all in relation to that decision to postpone the show for this year. But moving on to the CEO report here, I do have some slides for people who can follow along on the webcast, but I will be narrating this presentation as well for those of you on the phone. The first thing I'd like to do is obviously recognize the CWA Board of Directors. We have an excellent team of nearly 20 people who have dedicated their time and perspective and expertise to running this organization. The history of Canadian Western Agribition is and has always been and will always be a volunteer-led nonprofit, and that starts with the board of directors. I won't go through them all by name necessarily, but we have a diverse and engaged group of people here who have given more time than I think anybody outside of the organization could really appreciate in terms of helping us through. A lot of these directors not only serve on the board, but they also serve on committees, and in most cases they are chairs of those committees. So that's extra workload and an extra draw on these people's time, which is an entirely volunteer position. So thank you to the board of directors. Thank you for the leadership you give the organization and the support you give me as CEO and the staff here to make sure that Agribition continues to be one of the best run and most fun places to work in agriculture in Canada. The person I am going to single out, though, is our president, Chris Lees. You've heard him speak here today, but Chris Lees comes from a well-known and well-respected cattle family, purebred in the Hereford business, and has grown up around Agribition. And that passion and dedication to what Agribition stands for has been obvious, and if you have the chance to meet him, if you haven't already, it shines through. So thank you to our president, Chris Lees, for the leadership and again the time and dedication and support that you give waving the flag for Canadian Western Agribition all year round. I would also like to take a moment to thank and a brief introduction of the staff we have here at Agribition. We are a small group, but we take pride in our ability to be greater than the sum of our parts most days. And we have a selection of people, again, who rise above and beyond every showtime and year-round for Agribition. So just a brief introduction here. We have Corey Sentes, who is our Finance and Administration Manager. We have Carrie Hackle, who is our Trade Show Manager. Carson Reed, who is our Sponsorship and Business Development Associate. Melissa Fuchs, who is our Administration and Programs Coordinator. We have Shauna Fuchs, who is the longest serving as employee at Agribition, over 20 years, as our Livestock and Rodeo Manager. We have Carly Vorreiter, who is our Marketing and Communications Associate. We have Bianca Bernasconi, who is our Business Development Coordinator, and this is one of her last days in the office as she is going on a maternity leave in the next few days, so congratulations, Bianca. And we have Cheyenne Catley, who is our Livestock Coordinator, and I have to say, on a personal note, I could not ask for a better team. It is a pleasure and an honor to work with this group of directors and staff year-round. Now, on to show highlights and review of the 2019 show. Clearly, we have some crown jewels in what Agribition is about. The first is the thing we are probably most famous for and well known for at Agribition, and that is the RBC Beef Supreme. It was an excellent Supreme year, not only from an entry standpoint, but from an attendance and interest standpoint. The Beef Supreme is an event that only grows in stature and importance in our industry, and that's evidenced by the number of people that continue to attend it and the growing number of people that continue to stream it online. But let's start first with some numbers around attendance. And as Chris mentioned, we had a strong attendance year. Over 120,000 people took in Agribition over 6 days in 2019. Agribition plans more than 100 events over those 6 days. 121,000 people, while representing a dip in attendance in the last few years, is still an excellent number for us. It's in that range that we need to be sustainable. And I think if you look at the attendance numbers in 2019, you'll see that there was no significant dip in any one number or one area of the show. What we saw was a reflection in perhaps a tightening of the economy. We saw a reflection in a tough year, and it's especially a tough fall in agriculture. And we saw one of our biggest international demographics is our Australian guests, and a combination of drought and wildfires and factors in Australia unfortunately meant many of our Australian guests as regulars could not come to Agribition in 2019. But you'll see that 121,000 people is still a strong number for Agribition, and we were quite happy with the number of people that we were able to host in 2019. Some of the new programs that we had at Agribition in 2019 to help draw those numbers. For the first time, we had a freestyle motocross show in the Brant Center, which attracted 2,000 people through the gates, many of which who would not otherwise come to Agribition, and that is a programming philosophy that we always try to strive for at this organization, is not only are we doing the core programming that is valuable to the agriculture industry, but are we doing other programming that draws people into Agribition so that we can then show them and showcase the value of agriculture they might not otherwise see. Another one of our popular programs was back again in 2019, and that's our Goat Yoga program. You know, as a lighthearted program, again, the value in creating programs that attract urban audiences to Agribition and put the world of agriculture in front of them is something that is a core value to us and something you'll see us continue to do in the future. One of the biggest show highlights we have, as Chris mentioned, is our education program. This is something that has always been a part of Agribition, and we are encouraged by the increasing demand for agriculture education. In some cases, you know, we will hear that urban audiences and urban children are getting too far away from the farm or from agriculture, and that they don't understand where their food comes from or understand much about the industry that produces it. So we are encouraged every time that we struggle to fit in as many kids as we possibly can into our education program. Over the past few years, those numbers have only increased, as have the programs and spaces that we dedicate and design to the education program. And we do have to give a considerable amount of that credit to Agribition's Education Committee, a group of volunteers who are as dedicated to the cause of education as the teachers and parents who volunteer to take the kids here every year. A quick slide, a comparative slide on the numbers in our education program. This slide shows comparative numbers per day, and you'll see overall the 2019 numbers are continuing an upward trend. You'll notice perhaps most starkly is that on the Friday of the show, over the last 5 years, the number of kids coming to Agribition through this program has tripled. That gives you some idea of the growth that this program has experienced overall, but also of the importance of staying on top of evolving it and making sure that the programs are reflective of what the teachers and students are looking for, but also that we continue to have the space to grow this program and meet the demand. I would say it's a challenge we have to make sure that everybody who wants to come as a student gets a positive Agribition experience while they're here, but I'll tell you, it's a problem we're happy to have. Another show highlight for us is the growth of the international program. This program has been a deliberate and concerted effort by Agribition, both at the board and the staff level, to grow in the last several years, and we've done just that. The international program in 2020 saw 288 international buyers, which is a subset of the 1,300 plus international guests that came to Agribition in 2019. And I've always said that the international buyer number is as important to us as the international guest number, because those buyers are the ones that are coming to Agribition from all over the world specifically to invest in Canadian agriculture products and cattle genetics here at Agribition. So you can see over the last several years, we've been up and down over the years. In 2017, we had an all-time high of 365 international buyers. In 2019, we logged 288. I'm fairly confident, had that Australian delegation been available to come to Agribition in the numbers that they had indicated, that we would be at or near that all-time high of 365 buyers. The next slide and the statistic is really the most important part of that international program, and that shows the overall increase, substantial increase in the dollars invested by those international guests at Agribition into products and genetics. In 2019, we saw just under $1.4 million invested at showtime by these international buyers at Agribition. That's down slightly from 2018, but again, I think that's reflective of some of the limitations we had on some international travel, namely through Australia. What it really does show, though, is the international program and the dollars that that program is investing here at Agribition into our exhibitors is up substantial. In 5 years, it's up almost tenfold. We have no other program at Agribition that is that we set out to be as aggressive with, that is showing up in the statistics year after year that work is working. And that's a partnership that we have with the province of Saskatchewan and the Ministry of Agriculture around developing new and existing markets around the world and showcasing the fact that Agribition remains the single best place to do the business of agriculture in Canada. Now I'd like to spend a little bit of time on the overall financial picture of Agribition in 2019. As Chris mentioned, and as some of you may have seen in a news release that went out this morning, we have had a positive cash flow year in 2019, which is, given the state and the challenges that this organization faces due to COVID-19, is extremely important. It is extremely important for this organization to remain as sustainable as it possibly can be. The first slide I want to show is an overall comparative slide, revenue versus expenses. For those of you who can see the slides, we have on the green bars represent the revenues and the red bars represent expenses. You can see over the last 5 years we have consistently and routinely maintained revenues over expenses, which is an important part of that strategy around sustainability. In 2019, we had total revenues of just over $4.6 million with the total expenses of just under $4.3 million, which again leads to approximately $325,000 in net income. I'm going to talk a little bit about where that revenue comes from at Agribition. This is probably no surprise for people who know the organization well, but it may come as new information for those who don't. You can see on this slide here as we, essentially this is a pie chart, not arranged in a pie, around what business lines are producing which revenue for Agribition. And sponsorship and trade show each at just over $1 million, and show revenue represents just under $1 million, and that accounts for tickets and admission sales. So those three together account for just over $3 million worth of revenue out of a total of 4.6. So it gives you a sense of how big of a piece of the revenue and sustainability picture sponsorship, trade show exhibitors, and show revenues are. Of course, we wouldn't have any of that revenue if it wasn't for our livestock exhibitors, which are the heart and soul of what Agribition is about. Our livestock revenues are just under $500,000, and that includes everything from sales commissions through our sales to entry fees and any supplies that we might be able to sell the livestock exhibitors while they're here. We have a collection of other revenue streams that includes funding programs and international revenue, and a collection of other, sort of a generic other line, which includes everything from special projects and merchandise sales, for example. On the expense side, again, probably not much of a surprise for any organization that the largest single expense item is people. At Agribition, our entire labor and benefits category, it was about $1.25 million last year. And that includes, obviously, not only the staff that work here year-round, but I would, it's worth knowing that Agribition employs in some fashion or other more than 120 people every year. So between wages and benefits that Agribition pays to the people that we hire every year, that total value is $1.25 million. Show expenses, these are all the expenses that are associated with just producing Agribition. We are a substantial show. We are the single largest event on this property annually, and this show budget line item includes everything from audiovisual production and various rentals and programs that we put on during the course of the show. We also have building and equipment. The majority of this line is the value that we pay to Evraz Place, to our partners at Real, for the rental and use of their space and facilities and services. But it also includes some big ticket items in the heavy equipment that we need to rent to be able to produce a livestock show in the middle of the city. We have several other collections of smaller expense areas, marketing and communications, entertainment, which is almost exclusively the cost of putting on the rodeo, some administration costs, and then of course we, like any organization, have to book the depreciation value through amortization. So just to recap, our net income for 2019, revenue minus expenses, of course, $325,462. That includes payouts through our scholarship fund, which is administered as a separate account through the Agribition financials. And you can see how this compares over the last 5 years. In that, in the last, it represents an increase in the last 3 years as we continue to tick up as we expand our business, mostly in trade show and sponsorship revenue, down from significant highs in 2015 and 2016. And that comparison, I would say, between, we may get a question over what are the biggest differences between those net income highs in 2015 versus today, for example. And I would say the biggest difference there is bringing online of the International Trade Center and the associated costs with running that building on a year-to-year basis. But overall, net income of $325,000 is sustainable income for us that allows us to not only weather the challenges that we are about to face in 2020, which should not be understated, but also reinvest in the show for many Agribitions to come. We'll spend a little bit of time looking at a summarized and consolidated version of your balance sheet. And I should say, for anybody listening or watching, you should have an annual report. It's accessible. All these financials are available in a more detailed version in our annual report, including this balance sheet. But I did want to go over some important numbers on our balance sheet here. This is, of course, as at the end of January, which is the end of Agribition's fiscal year. We have a cash balance of $792,000. We have investments worth almost $1.4 million. We have a contingency reserve set aside for emergencies of $500,000 exactly. And at the end of January, we had some accounts receivable on the assets line and some prepaid expenses for non-capital asset total of just under $3 million. On the liability side, we also had some accounts payable, some deferred income, really for less than $150,000 in total liabilities. Really, the most important thing to know about Agribition's balance sheet at this time is that we are in a strong liquid position in terms of cash and accessible cash, and Agribition is in a position that we have no debt to service. Agribition carries no debt, and we don't see in our future, even despite the challenges in 2020, the need to take on any debt. But I didn't want to leave the presentation just about the numbers of Agribition, even though they are important to us, especially now. One of the most important things Agribition does year-round is our involvement in the community. The things that we participate in, the things that we support, are all geared to supporting the overall agriculture industry, and most importantly, the people in it, who come to Agribition and make our organization work every year. One of the biggest success stories we've had in our community involvement file this year has been a record amount of funds that we were able to raise through various means for STARS, which you see in this slide here is the presentation of a check of just over $36,000 to STARS from Showtime activities alone. But we also participated in other fundraising activities for STARS through the year, which included my participation in Rescue on the Prairies, which added another $40,000 to that total for STARS. We also take part in many community events in and around Regina. This is obviously our home. This is the city that we live and work in, and is the home to Agribition. So whether that's Canada Day celebrations, Harbor Landing Days, I Love Regina Days, a number of community events. The staff and volunteers at Agribition take great pride in being a part of the community and being part of those events to celebrate not only the place we live, but Agribition as an organization. And one of the new events that we took part in 2019 was QCX, Queen City X. Agribition was a full partner in that event as we produced educational agriculture programming as an addition to the fair, as well as assisted in producing the first ever rodeo at Queen City X. So we were happy about that as well. And of course, I couldn't leave the presentation without talking about our scholarship program. Thanks to donations over the years from various families and people connected to the organization, Agribition is able to hand out more than $10,000 in scholarships every year. We are extremely proud of the work that we are able to do, thanks to those donations, to support the next generation of people in agriculture as they continue their studies. And on that note, I should also mention the success that we are having and continue to have with the Next Gen Mentorship Program. Through a partnership with the Government of Saskatchewan, Agribition is now in its second cohort of mentorship training for a group of 8 young people in the agriculture industry in Saskatchewan, paired up with 8 of the leading voices and minds in the industry, all towards, again, supporting and developing the next generation of agriculture leaders in this province. And finally, to summarize the kind of things that Agribition does year-round and why we are so happy to be part of this industry. 2019 also saw what was an unprecedented move for Agribition in a contribution agreement to the Livestock Forage and Center of Excellence worth $100,000 to support the research and, I would say, the most advanced and important research project in the beef cattle industry in Canada. Agribition is proud to be a part of that. We generate more than $70 million annually, every year, for the province of Saskatchewan's economy. We are proud to do that. As I mentioned, we raised $80,000 for STARS this year. And of course, we've handed out more than $10,000 in scholarships to deserving young Saskatchewan people in the agriculture industry as they continue their studies. And we couldn't leave it without acknowledging not only the volunteers on our board, but the volunteers that make Agribition work. This is the bottled magic of Agribition. More than 350 people donate their time, expertise, and perspective to the organization every single year. It will never cease to amaze me the uptake and engagement that Agribition gets and benefits from the work of more than 350 people every single year just to make the show work. So on that, I would say thank you to those volunteers and thank you to everyone who's been a partner in Agribition in 2019, whether you are a sponsor, an exhibitor, a board member, a volunteer, or a visitor. Agribition wouldn't be the same if we didn't have the people behind it, and the people behind it are the single biggest reason for the success that we were able to enjoy and report today. And I would remind everybody online or on the phone that if there was anything in that presentation that you wanted to ask a question on, we will be taking questions over the phone lines later in the presentation, in the AGM rather, and also online. If you log on to agribition.com, you can submit a question online through email or a question box. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Moving on. So the next part of our program is we have sent out a proxy again to our membership base for voting. The motion, which reads as follows, that the CWA 2019-2020 audited financial statements be approved. Moved by Kim Hextall and second by Curtis Kahinka. This motion has been carried. Next on the list, appointment of auditors for 2020 and 2021. We have sent out a proxy to our membership base for voting on our various course of business motions. Thank you to those who have voted. The motion reads as follows, that MNMP LLP be appointed as the auditors for CWA for the fiscal year 2020 and 2021. Moved by Levi Jackson, seconded by Kim Hextall. The motion has been carried. At this time, we will have last call for resolutions. Chris, have you received any resolutions?
No resolutions from the floor.
The record shows there were no resolutions. We'll move on. Nominations for directors. This year, we have 6 seats open for the 2020-2021 Board of Directors. We have received 6 nominations for those seats. So first up, do we have Kelsey Ashworth on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Are you ready to give a presentation?
You bet. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Well, hello, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Kelsey Ashworth, and I am from Unger, Saskatchewan. My husband Kyle and I, along with my in-laws, operate a grain farm and a purebred Simmental herd in southeast Saskatchewan. My time off the farm is spent with BASF as an account manager. I work with crop input retails on the sales and distribution of Invigor canola seed and our crop protection portfolio. Today I'm here to seek re-election for the Canadian Western Agribition Board of Directors. 2020 would mark my 2nd term and what would have been my 3rd show. For the last 2 years, I've had the opportunity to work with the 4-H and youth file, which include the national judging competition, grooming, and showmanship events. Being a strong supporter of 4-H and junior programs and a past competitor myself, I have enjoyed playing a part in these events. My goal with this file is to ensure it remains successful and continues year after year for future youth to take part in, and of course to try and make changes to improve the competition each and every year. My previous involvement with Agribition has included being a competitor, an exhibitor, a volunteer, and of course a director. I have enjoyed learning about the show and all the events that go into making it a success. It's also been eye-opening to learn how much of an impact Agribition has on our city, the province, and our overall agriculture industry. It's been a privilege to meet and work beside others who share a passion for agriculture. As everyone, I was looking forward to the 50th show, however, believe this excitement will only continue to build in 2021. I look forward to continuing to work with the Agribition community, the staff, and my fellow directors over this next term. So I appreciate this opportunity and your time today. Thank you.
So, thank you, Kelsey. Operator, do we have Garth Newell on the line?
Mr. Newell, your line is live.
I have to believe this excitement will only continue to build.
Go ahead, Garth.
Hello, good day. My name is Garth Newell. I'm a journeyman electrician working for Crescent Point Energy in the Carlisle office here in Carlisle. I'm the electrical coordinator for Southeast Saskatchewan. I have raised livestock all of my life and grew up on a farm with farming background and a veterinarian son for my father, Dr. Reg Newell, as a private practitioner here in Carlisle for several years. I've been a 4-H leader, assistant leader in Alameda's 4-H club along with our Colas club. I've shown purebred polled Herefords at Agribition for over 20 years, back in the 80s through the 2001, and have had many of my own cattle at Agribition. I haven't had a cattle at Agribition for 20 years of my own, but I have still volunteered as a ringman for the Hereford show and the President's Classic show in the last 5 years at Agribition. I have experienced Agribition as an exhibitor and a buyer to help market my cattle, bloodlines, and farm name, and to promote sales on the world scale. As a result, I have sold cattle to farms in Australia, United States, and Argentina. That's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you, Garth. Operator, is Ellie Pike on the line?
Allie, your line is now live.
Good
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Allie Pike, and I'm originally from Ottawa. My husband, Dustin, and my new son, Charlie, now live in Grand Coulee, just outside of Regina. And this marks the completion of my first term being on the board, and it has been fantastic. I've actually volunteered at the show every year since Dustin and I moved here in 2013. My mom now comes out every year from Ontario, and I'm pretty sure it's safe to say my son is looking forward to his first show in 2021. We really are an Agribition family now, and over the last couple of years, I've been chair of the food demonstration stage and previously volunteered on the committee since its inception in 2015, I believe it was. It's been an amazing experience to grow something new and from the ground up at Agribition. We've learned a lot along the way. I think we've improved the stage every year, and we continue to think of how to make things bigger and better, and I have no doubt that 2021 will be our best year yet. And then last year, in partnership with the Education Committee, we expanded the food stage to include registered programming for schools, which was an amazing thing to see, and it was very exciting to see the enthusiasm of the kids every day. As both Chris's mentioned earlier, education and allowing and encouraging urban families and children to learn about where the food comes from is one of the main goals of Agribition, and I'm proud to have been a very small part of that in 2019, and I'd love to continue to be part of that and help bring awareness about agriculture going forward. One of my other roles on the board over the last couple of years has been chair of the volunteers, and with that came emceeing our volunteer dinner, I guess 2 years ago now, which pushed me way outside my comfort zone, and it seems being on the board has done that quite a number of times, but I'm quite thankful to have done it, and I think it's a unique and a special opportunity to stand up in front of all of our volunteers and say thank you. It really is how this show operates and how we have our success is through our volunteers, and I think it'll be an extra special time the next time we can get everybody in the room and say thank you. It really is an honor to be a part of this board and the Agribition community as a whole. It's something I don't take for granted, being part of this organization, and I'd really love to continue to grow the show and be a member of this board of directors team and the Agribition family. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Allie. One thing I'd like to add about Allie is that she did volunteer for the first show here in 2013, and I'm not sure how many months she'd been here. Not many. And she volunteered, and the job she got was to be a courtesy driver in the city of Regina that she had never been in before. But she said she had a great time, and she never looked back. Our next speaker, operator, do we have Carol Poole on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Carol Poole, and I fell in love with the Canadian Western Agribition in the fall of 2018 when I was both barn boss and show chair for the Alpaca Show. Although I had attended Agribition over the years, it was at that Agribition that I fully understood how important this show is. It's not just a livestock show, but something so much more. I just watched the fast milk demo and overheard a couple of boys, about 8 years old, say to each other, "How cool is that? Cows make milk for us to drink." That's when I realized if those kids don't come here, how else will they learn where food comes from? On that day, those kids got it. That food doesn't come from the store, but it comes from the land and the farm. That is when I really opened my eyes and started to truly see what happens at this show. The vibe and feeling in these buildings is one of pure excitement, but more importantly, good fellowship and sportsmanship, with everyone working towards one single goal, to make this exhibition a huge success. For the past 24 years, I've been raising alpacas. Since that time, I've traveled across our country, the United States and Peru, learning about alpacas, attending shows and seminars, where I'm also currently working on my international judging certificate. In the last 18 years, I've been organizing Canadian shows, both locally and regionally, always in the role of show chairman. Then in 2006 to 2010, I was hired to help organize 5 international alpaca shows in the United States. I live in Saskatoon and sit on numerous boards where my position is usually being treasurer. Last year at Agribition, I stayed the whole week with my alpacas. I then realized I still wanted to do more. I wanted to be part of something that's so important, that educating people where food ethically and sustainably comes from is something our whole country needs to take part in, and I want to be part of this. I was born in Saskatchewan, was raised in a small farming community, and I've lived here my whole life. I love what we stand for, and I know I'll be a great addition to this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Moving on with our nominees, we have two of them in the room with us. I would ask them to come and speak, please. And we'll start with Levi Jackson.
Hi, folks. I've been told I have a face for radio, so I'm not sure how well this will work. But first Agribition was 71, and my first Agribition was 73, and I've been here ever since. This year is my 31st year of being a volunteer, and I just thoroughly enjoy it the whole time. It's the fourth year now I've been on the board, and this coming term will be years 5 and 6. It's just terrific to be working with such a diverse group of people as far as directors go. We've got people from every avenue when it comes to the agricultural, the eventing kind of thing that Agribition does. And one of the things that I've actually been really, really happy with over the years, that all my involvement has been livestock, but I have always recognized how many more things there are to Agribition than just a cattle show. And it's amazing how much it has grown over the years into such a diverse event that people can come and see almost anything they want and be thoroughly entertained in every part of the show that they go to, whether it's trade fair, the sheep part of things, the rodeo, all of the different events that are there. And I just really, really appreciate just how much Agribition has done for the city of Regina, the province of Saskatchewan, because whether other people like it or not, we're the best show in Canada. There is just no doubt, and I'm very, very proud of that, to be a part of it. So I'm looking forward to another couple of years. Been on the executive, and I do look after, to this point, quite a bit of the beef side of things when it comes to all the shows that's involved with that. So lots of fun, thoroughly enjoy it, and got a couple of really good new people coming on. It'll be terrific having them to fit in with everyone else that's already here. So I do want to say thanks to Chris Lane and his staff for everything that they've had to go through and endure in these times. It's really, really difficult, and as much to Chris Lees for all the time that he's put in being in here, being a big part of the direction that we've had to go. So thanks to everyone involved.
Thank you, Levi. The sixth and final speaker we have today will be Marty Cradaville. Marty's with us today.
Good afternoon. My name is Marty Cradaville. I'm from Milton, Saskatchewan. I've been a volunteer for 8 years, and I've been on the board of directors for a few terms now. I would like to thank Ali Pike for nominating me today. And as a director for Canadian Western Agribition, I've been able to be involved with a number of different files. The livestock, the equine, the cattle dog, the Longhorn show, and now the rodeo. So when I started with Agribition, I thought of what I could do for Agribition. But I'd like to tell you what Agribition has done for me. I got the opportunity to meet a wide variety of people from a lot of different fields that I might not never have got to meet before. I was also able to see Agribition from the other side. And the other side, there's a huge amount of people that never get to be seen, and they work together to produce a one-of-a-kind show. The Agribition Rodeo gave me a place to propose, which with 7,000 people watching, she really couldn't say no. So that worked out well. And of course, she dressed me today and made me wear a new eye patch and everything, so it worked out good. Okay, so in conclusion, I feel like my experiences here at Agribition have been very valuable for myself, and I hope that I can keep contributing to Agribition in many different ways and in all the fields and files that I'm involved with. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. So as I said earlier, we had positions open for 6. We had 6 nominees, so there was no election, and they are acclaimed to be the CWA Board of Directors for the 2021 year and a 2-year term. I'd like to welcome our 6 new members, or our 6 new directors, and as well our returning ones. With that, we'll go to other business, and I will hand it back to Chris Lane.
Sure. Thank you, Chris, and thank you to all of our nominees and directors. Welcome to the board. For those of you who are brand new, in Garth and Carol, we look forward to working with you. The new business portion of the meeting here is, is essentially the only thing that I have that I think we should probably just discuss, maybe in kind of an umbrella term, is really what the effects of COVID-19 and the decision to postpone our 50th show until 2021 is going to look like for the next 6 months. And a lot of credit goes to the board and the staff over the last week or 2 weeks here. Well, we have come to that decision and what it means for us and how we pivot and how we reorganize how we work, and the kind of work that we are going to be doing in the next 6 months. So, it should come as no surprise. We don't normally talk about these kind of things at the AGM, but I do feel like we have some obligation to the public and the membership here to acknowledge the kind of, the scale of the challenge that's before us at Agribition. If I can put it in some pretty broad terms, the absence of Agribition Show Week equals the absence of about 95% of our incoming revenue. So that is as about as significant as a financial challenge as this organization has ever faced. At the same time, we are halfway through the year and have incurred the costs of running the organization for half the year. So right now, what needs to happen is an aggressive cost management strategy, as well as a pretty aggressive new revenue stream development strategy. And that's what we're going to do. Faced with this, there's really only 2 options. Is one, you can turn the lights off and go dark and dust the whole thing off in 2021, or you can reorganize yourselves in a way that allows you to still add value to the industry, still use the spotlight and platform of Agribition to help the exhibitors in the industry. And that's what we've chosen to do. And I just think that that's the work that you're going to see from us in the next 6 months. But we should be under no illusion about the uphill struggle financially that this will mean. But I should also say that the board and the staff are as dedicated as they've ever been to making sure that, as much of a struggle this is, it's one that we're going to get through. And it's a crisis that, while real, is one that we can see a way through to the other side. And you'll see engagement and excitement from us as we work through that. And I couldn't ask for a better team around the board table or around our staff table to be able to do that. So I think, that's really all I wanted to say in other business, is just, be clear about the scale of that challenge, and our intentions and our strategies around getting through it. we will have new programs that are going to be developed here in short order, and we'll announce those and look for engagement and participation as we announce those. And we look forward to sharing that with you as soon as we have details on that. I think that's essentially what we had under other business, although we still do have some time here for some questions and answers. We've had none come to us online through the questions box or the email, but operator, if there are people on the phone line who would like to ask a question, we are certainly in a position to do that now.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we will open the floor for questions. If you would like to ask a question, please signal by pressing *1 on your telephone keypad now. If you're using a speakerphone, please make sure that your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. A voice prompt on the phone will indicate when your line is live. And again, that is *1 if you would like to ask a question. We'll pause for just a moment to allow everyone an opportunity to signal for questions. And again, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1 now. And at this time, I'm currently showing no questions.
Okay, thank you, operator. I think we won't necessarily wait too long for any questions. The AGM, even in this format, is a good place, a good forum to have that discussion with the membership. But I would add, it's not the only forum we have, and that I think a hallmark of Agribition needs to be its openness with its members and its partners, and we will continue that through the rest of 2020 and update our community and our partners and our members as we go as to the state of planning for 2021, and also the state of any new programs that we do develop in this year. Okay, if there are no questions, operator, I think we can move on.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And moving on, the next part of it is, once again, we have sent out a proxy to our membership base. The motion, which reads as follows: that the actions of the 2019-20 Board of Directors for the year ending January 31st, 2020 be ratified. Moved by Michael Latimer, second by Levi Jackson, and the motion has been carried. So the next part of our agenda is for me as well, and the first thing I would like to do is thank Chris and his staff, because I can guarantee you that it makes the Board of Directors' job a whole lot easier with you people doing your job, and we're not having to make sure you're doing your job. And the 3 months that these people worked from home, they never let up a bit. I was in contact with Chris probably twice a week from the day that things kind of got shut down until yesterday, and in this last 2 or 3 weeks I've been in contact with him. I know that I'm on his phone more than anybody else. So thank you to Chris and the staff. You've done a tremendous job, and us as a board, we appreciate everything you have done. I also certainly want to thank the volunteers of Agribition, and as Chris mentioned, there's 350 volunteers here annually, and the show could not go on without them. They are an important part of what we do. And of course, every exhibitor, every international person, every visitor that walks through that gate is what makes Agribition happen, and we're certainly proud of that fact. So if we were in a different setting, we would have a big round of applause here for all of those people that make it happen. This fall, Chris alluded to it a little bit, no details are public at this point in time, but there's certainly going to be some programming this fall. It isn't going to be what you're used to by any means, and you know that, but there is a little bit of programming that they are putting together and working on as we speak. I know that tomorrow morning they're having a meeting, and it's a brain strategy session that they're going to come up with some plans and generate some revenue. So we're certainly looking forward to that. Looking to 2021, I personally think, and I certainly could be wrong, but I personally think in 2021, when the world has gone back to normal, we will have a huge, huge successful show for our 50th show, our 50th anniversary. It is going to be tremendous. I certainly know that people are disappointed that they weren't able to be here this year, but everyone that ever exhibited at Agribition understands what's going on, understands how we're dealing with it, and they can't wait to be here. Our international guests, we talk to them regularly, they're ready to come back. It will be great in 2021. So, following this meeting, the CWA executive elections will follow after the adjournment, and we will post those results on Friday as to who the new executive is, the new president, and the vice president. So with that, I don't think I have anything more to say. Thank you to everybody that participated. Thank you for Halter Media and SaskTel, and certainly thanks for everyone that is here in the room with us that made this the new virtual AGM for Agribition. At this time, I would like to ask for an adjournment from the floor. Curtis Kahinka. Thank you, Curtis. The meeting has been adjourned.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's call. Thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect your phone line.